I definitely would recommend people watch Actual Justice Warrior. Sean Fitzgerald. He's very good. He's very, very good. Um, and thorough as well. Like he has a very, very thorough deconstruction of every subject he goes into. Because the thing is, a lot of the problem that I have is I just don't have time to look into every single sort of contested event that the left are doing. So oh, this person in this town did this thing, and now you have to know all of the lore that surrounds it in order to be able to challenge their narratives on these things. And Sean does that, and he does a really good job of it. And he does a really thorough job of it. And I watched his debate with James Lindsay against who's it, Jangles and someone else. And Sean just did so well. He just had all of the knowledge straight to hand, and he just did a brilliant job. Totally recommend him. Totally.
Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers. Today we are going to be talking about a story, a tale as old as time on the internet.com, and that is a leftist progressive YouTuber quitting due to the fact that their leftist progressive audience are a bunch of monsters and animals. Now, for those of you who have not seen Lauren Chen's fantastic video on this subject, I just want to say I'm going to link that in the description because she did a lot of the legwork, and I'm totally going to mooch off of her because I wanted to cover this topic. I saw she did it first. I had things to do. So in order to thank her, go over, watch her video, leave a comment, let her know that you were sent because it actually is really good. You could say it's the gold standard, and me giving her credit is a noble thing to do. Yes, I just transitioned from credit to an ad. It was beautiful. Here you go, noble gold. It's a new year and not much has changed. Houses are still selling in a week, stocks are at all-time highs, and the government just borrowed, wait a second, scratch that, printed $5 trillion. Yes, you heard that right. Now, we're being told that inflation that we're experiencing, which by the way is at about 6.8%, in some parts of the country around 8%, is transitory. Nothing to worry about, it's just transitory. So what can you do? Well, I highly recommend that you play it a little bit safe. Put some of your money into precious metals to hedge against the oncoming inflation. This month, Noble Gold is giving away a free 1/10 of an ounce solid gold American Eagle coin with any qualifying plan to start. If you're interested in learning more, I highly recommend you talk to an expert at Noble Gold Investments. This isn't a giant sales pitch. You're not going to be hooked up to a call center. They're just good people that know what they're talking about, and it's really refreshing at times like these to find these people. Call them at 877-646-5347 or visit my affiliate link, Noble Gold Investments, pinned comment and in the top of the description.com. So for those of you who are unaware, for those of you who are ill-informed, for those of you who are not in the know, that are not hip to the groove, whatever the kids are saying, Lindsay Ellis is a video essayist and really one of the pioneers of this genre on YouTube, as she's been on this platform and been successful on this platform for about a decade or maybe over a decade. I'm not really sure. Honestly, I didn't do that all my research, but whatever.
I definitely would recommend people watch Actual Justice Warrior. Sean Fitzgerald. He's very good. He's very, very good. And thorough as well. Like he has a very, very thorough deconstruction of every subject he goes into.
But here's the thing. Lindsay is a left-wing progressive, like a lot of these video essayists are, so she has a left-wing progressive audience. So despite the fact that Lindsay has been trying to appease members of her audience, much like J.K. Rowling, who was trying to become more and more woke and add diversity and gays into Harry Potter after the fact, Lindsay Ellis, who, by the way, participated in the dogpiling on J.K. Rowling, so irony amongst ironies, has not been deemed to be progressive enough. She did some racisms, and therefore, she is considered unwatchable, unacceptable. She did some homophobias, and she even put out over an hour-long video detailing her sins and begging for mercy before deciding to quit YouTube, because the monsters in her audience will never let anything go. Now look, we are going to get into all of the accused racisms that Lindsay Ellis supposedly, allegedly ended up doing, and how ridiculous they are, and how insane it is to blow up a successful career over an audience that is angry about this, because no human person who has the maturity of above about 7 years old could actually be offended by any of these things, should actually be offended by this. But I do want to just say up front that Lindsay Ellis, unlike many other progressives, unlike many other versions of these content creators, is actually talented. Even though I don't like her, even though I don't agree with her politics, even though I find her and her drive for censorship and her team ups with people like Hank Green promoting censorship on YouTube to be distasteful, and therefore this is somebody that I would not support in any financial way as they seek to eliminate me and other creators on my side of the spectrum, even though she doesn't theoretically even do politics because she disagrees with us that much. This is somebody who is not garbage at what she does. She has a video that I've seen before and I actually quite enjoyed about Robin Williams versus Disney, and this is worthwhile content in watching if you didn't know about the feud between Robin Williams and Disney. It's actually quite interesting, and why he wasn't in Aladdin 2 and all of that. So as we go over her different videos that have been supposedly allegedly racist, I, as somebody who have seen some of these videos, are going to make points about them so you can understand what we're talking about and why it's actually unfortunate that somebody with some ability, somebody who has some analytical skill, has subjected herself to these kind of people in her audience, because you don't have to put up with these people. You don't have to pander to them. You don't have to give in so much that you feel attached to them, and then that gives them the power to destroy you. You could ignore these people, and I recommend all these video essayists who think it's not going to happen to them, don't align yourself with these progressive whack jobs, because they will ultimately end up destroying you. That is the cautionary tale that is in fact a Lindsay Ellis. But let's get into the first supposedly, allegedly racist tweet of this incident that really set the internet on fire. By set the internet on fire, I mean set the really dumb part of the internet on fire. Also, watch Raya the Last Dragon, and I think we need to come up with a name for this genre that's basically Avatar the Last Airbender reduxes. It's like half of all YA fantasy published in the last few years anyway. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what even was that? How, is that actually a tweet that got her in trouble? And that is why you need to do me a favor, dial back the logical portion of your brain and descend into peak stupid, because Avatar The Last Airbender is based on Asian culture and Asian ideas. Raya the Last Dragon, the IP that Lindsay Ellis carelessly and callously, according to her audience, named, is also based on Asian ideals. Therefore, Lindsay Ellis supposedly participated in anti-Asian racism by commenting on these American IPs that were both inspired by Asianism and talking about how one appears to be in some way derivative of the other. And the crazy thing about this is that I've made comments just like Lindsay Ellis, exactly the same almost, depending on the IP, all the time on this channel whenever I talk about movie reviews or whenever I even slightly reference movies that are copies of others. I just did a review of Spider-Man where I talked about the reason why Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies were screwed over, and that was because the first one was trying to be like the Dark Knight series of movies, and then the second one in the Amazing Spider-Man universe was trying to be like the Avengers, building out a whole cinematic universe. The idea that Hollywood does not copy successful formulas is patently absurd and ridiculous. The idea that it's racist to point out that after a movie like Parasite, all of a sudden we got some more Korean IPs being greenlit because that actually won Best Picture and it got a lot of rave reviews is ridiculous. Of course, Hollywood is full of imitators, copycats, etc., and pointing out that one American company doing an Asian style show and how it's similar to one of the most successful and brilliant animated series ever produced by Nickelodeon, but ever produced in America, is not racist at all whatsoever. So Lindsay Ellis is being attacked for this. She supposedly attacked the Asian community, meaning there are people on Twitter who are whining on behalf of imaginary Asians about this American IP that is kind of similar in structure to this other American IP that is significantly more popular and obviously spawned a million imitators. Really, this is what it takes to break them. And again, this is on Twitter. She didn't even say this in a video. I tweet crazy stuff all the time, but Ellis's audience is cruel and unforgiving because they're monsters, so they've reacted by calling her racist and demanding that she apologize. And when she gave a response that downplayed what she actually did, because what she actually did was nothing, the internet, these far left psychopaths, were none too pleased that she didn't bend the knee and bow down to them and accept that they are superior over her. Now, her next tweet, which says, I can see where if you squint, oh my god, squint, oh my god, she just said squint, what a horrific racist. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure some people were outraged at that part, but I thought that would be funny. But it's actually the rest of the tweet, which I'm going to continue reading, that they were actually outraged at. I can see where if you squint, I was implying all Asian-inspired properties are the same, especially if you were already privy to those conversations where I had not seen them. But the basic framework of The Last Airbender is becoming popular fantasy fiction outside of Asian-inspired stuff. So again, this is a perfectly reasonable response where she says, okay, I know that a bunch of you are calling this a racism because you thought I was comparing two Asian-inspired things and saying one was a knockoff of the other because it's Asian and therefore Chinese knockoffs. No, I'm just kidding about that. But therefore, like, all the Asian-inspired things are the same, which is a stereotype about Asian people, whatever. But in reality, I wasn't talking about this. I was talking about how a lot of things copy Avatar: The Last Airbender well outside Asian-inspired things in general. It's a really popular series in the United States of America, and people would love to capture this popularity, distill it, and reproduce it for profit. That's what Lindsay Ellis responded, but of course, that's not good enough. Of course, the left is angry, and of course, it's never good enough. Now, Lindsay has another tweet that I forgot to pull up so I could read it to you guys.
I definitely would recommend people watch Actual Justice Warrior, Sean Fitzgerald. He's very good. He's very, very good. And thorough.
Where she essentially makes the point that saying something is similar structurally to something else, especially when we're talking about narratives, is not necessarily an insult. And it's weird that people immediately jump to that, and it's also weird that people immediately jump to calling it racist when we have things like a 3-act structure, and obviously, as I stated before, copying is very prolific to the point where there isn't really an original story. Sometimes there's original ideas, but they're meant to be confined in methods of storytelling that we're familiar with because those are the methods that tend to work. Now, obviously, that's perfectly reasonable to say and something you would expect somebody to say who's working as a media critic, but I'd like to take it a step further and point out that even if she was saying that Asian-inspired IPs are all similar and derivative of Avatar: The Last Airbender, even that wouldn't be bad, because again, just look at the number of Asian-inspired IPs that come out post-Avatar: The Last Airbender. Look at the number of shonens that have become popular in Japan post-Dragon Ball Z. To point out that there's formulas being repeated because that formula is successful is the most obvious thing to do in media criticism ever, and if you're offended by that, you're either insincere, you're lying, I don't believe you're that stupid, or you are incredibly stupid and you should not be allowed on the internet because you're embarrassing yourself. But again, these are people in Lindsay Ellis' audience. These are the people that she caters to. So when I point out what she knows in her heart, that these people are ridiculous idiots or opportunistic scumbags, and these people ought to be dismissed, she can't do that because that's the audience that she cultivated, and she has done similar bad faith attacks against other people like J.K. Rowling in the past. Now, with that being said, let's continue a little bit more into the nonsense. Next week, January 15th and 16th, you can come see me live at DebateCon, hosted by the Modern Day Debates people in Dallas, Texas. You can get tickets. I'm pretty sure I'm in the second night, so if you want to get tickets for the second night to just see me on my panels, that's all good. Full details in the description of this video. Let's get back to the actual video that you actually came to watch instead of me promoting things. So there are many other similar non-controversies like this in Lindsay Ellis' past that have built up to make that video that I talked about earlier, where she essentially tries to make peace and win people over to her side. But unfortunately for her and her audience, because they're scumbags, they basically said, you're a white woman trying to use white woman tears in order to manipulate you. Which is amazing because when you adopt this ideology that centers minority people as superior beings that need to always be looked up on, anybody presenting themselves as one of those minorities can claim that every single one of your feelings is invalid, everything that is happening to you is invalid, and that you're basically worthless, and every single one of your actions, as Lindsay Ellis found out, meet some kind of stupid leftist trope that is considered evil, white, and racist, and that's basically what Lindsay Ellis is going through. But there's one specific series of tweets and anger that has been thrown at her that I want to discuss because it's based on a video that I saw, and it's one of my favorite Lindsay Ellis videos. As somebody who doesn't watch a lot of her content, this one came across my field of vision as I was looking for content related to Twilight, because anti-Twilight content is hilarious, and that is her video talking about how the attacks on Stephenie Meyer are completely unfair. Now, the reason people on the left hate this video is because apparently there's some stupid, worthless, useless controversy about how Native Americans feel about their portrayal in Stephenie Meyer's story. I didn't even know there were even any Indians even in this thing even, but apparently maybe the werewolves are the Indians. I don't know, not really relevant. But the thing is, the reason this wasn't included in Lindsay Ellis's video is obvious, because her video wasn't about people crying about Indian representation in Twilight. The whole point of her video was to talk about insincere criticism or bad criticism against Twilight, because Twilight is not meant to be an example for all girls to aspire to in what they're looking for a person. And I'm talking about all those videos on the internet, while funny, about how Edward's a stalker and how it's a toxic relationship, yada yada yada, and this just sets a terrible example for girls. All of a sudden, people right, left, and center have teamed up and unified against this IP, saying that all the harmful stereotypes in it are somehow attributable to the population at mass, and therefore they need to be corrected because of those purposes. Lindsay Ellis breaks down, and she actually proves her case, that Stephenie Meyer wrote Twilight as a personal fantasy, so it's not meant to be taken as something that's applicable to all people abroad. And if a left-wing person attacked a more traditional story, like Beauty and the Beast or Snow White or whatever, in a similar way, saying that this castigates all women into this category and therefore it needs to be censored or therefore it needs to be corrected or whatever, many people on the right especially would come out against it. But because Twilight was a new thing and the fan base was so annoying and the fan base was teenage girls, everybody seemed to pile on this, even though Stephenie Meyer was never making the case that Edward and whatever the girl's name, Kristen Stewart, their romance was meant to be something for everybody to inspire to. It was her personal fantasy, and that's what comes through on the page. On top of that, while everybody likes to hate on Stephenie Meyer, let us not forget, and this is also in Lindsay Ellis's really good video on the topic, that there is a knockoff of Twilight called 50 Shades of Grey that Stephenie Meyer has never once even hinted that she would take legal action against, even though this is a story based on fan fiction about her work. So Stephenie Meyer, you might think she has goofy fantasies, you might think she's troubling girls all over by promoting stalking or whatever, has actually done more for fans and fair use than anybody, because she had a solid case that not only was 50 Shades of Grey a ripoff of Twilight because it was literally Twilight fanfiction, but it was also something that meant to take away from the original IP, because Stephenie Meyer was a Mormon and there's religious undertones in Twilight, and 50 Shades of Grey takes the characters and removes all of that. And one of the aspects of a copyright violation is that you're taking away or you're trying to denigrate the original works. This could easily have been interpreted in that way, and yet Stephenie Meyer didn't care because she became successful enough and she let this person prosper off of using characters that were in the fanfiction her characters. Obviously they were changed and some of the stuff was changed for the actual books that ended up being published. But that's the kind of person that she is, even though everybody paints her as a demon. Now, while I do think it is incredibly commendable and actually progress for building on other people's stories going forward, being inspired by artwork in order to create art of your own, that Stephenie Meyer never even threatened legal action against the author of 50 Shades of Grey, we do have to point out that this great grace that she extended to her was the thing that allowed 50 Shades of Grey to be created. So maybe her grace created an abomination, and by maybe I mean definitely, so it kind of undercuts it that the art that was made was probably and actually significantly worse than the original art. But point being, many other creators, musicians, etc. would not have done the same. They would have been vicious and nasty in the public, and Stephenie Meyer has never done that. She's always been super decent, and this was part of the point of Lindsay Ellis's video, that apparently, according to these left-wing terror activists, needed to have a huge section in it devoted to how the werewolves weren't legit native Indians or whatever. I don't know if the werewolves are actually based on natives.
And thorough as well. Like he has a very, very thorough deconstruction of every subject he goes into.
So I wouldn't have gotten negative Indian stereotypes from that, but that's what these people are angry about. And they're really angry about it to the point where I don't believe they're angry about it, because you would have to be incredibly stupid to be this angry about it. Remember, Stephanie Meyer's a Mormon. They believe that Native Americans are from Jerusalem and they were cursed to have their skin turn red, according to South Park, which is where I learned all my Mormon stuff. So maybe this wasn't the worst possible portrayal of Native American states that Stephanie Meyer could have put on the screen. Count your blessings. I always say, when you're coming out ahead, you're definitely ahead. Now, overall, I have mixed feelings on Lindsay Ellis' self-deletion. And by the way, I use the term self-deletion to talk about literally how she deplatformed herself, not trying to use the manner of phrase that Jeremy from the Quartering uses, because for some reason he doesn't want to say the word suicide in any of his videos, as if that's gonna get him banned from the internet. That's not how that works, buddy. Trust me, this video will be fully monetized. I'll send you the screenshots after this if you leave me a comment. What I'm actually talking about is her deplatforming herself, because on the one hand, she is somebody who's talented. A lot of these video essayists, who by the way, have not come to the defense of Lindsay Ellis, just goes to show you how fair weather friends or internet friends tend to work overall, especially among the left. They're not like the ride or dies that I've met on the internet.com. But on the other hand, Lindsay Ellis has proudly participated in the circular firing squad against other left-wingers. She was big on the internet in going after J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, who Lindsay Ellis supported not supporting anymore because of the small disagreements that they have overall based on the whole transes thing, because Lindsay Ellis is fully in the progressive camp of the transes, and J.K. Rowling says women exist because they do, and therefore J.K. Rowling needs to be canceled, and Lindsay Ellis participated in that. So in a way, it's a reap what you sow situation. And if you take it a step further, Lindsay Ellis might have hesitated because she liked J.K. Rowling stuff, even though she didn't hesitate. She was feeding the bad nature of her audience, creating the monster that would ultimately consume her. She would also celebrate people like Steven Crowder, and I'm sure she has, getting suspended, banned, etc., or other right-wing creators being suspended, banned, etc. This is what this person does. Now, I know for a fact that a lot of people out there in my audience don't feel any sympathy for Lindsay Ellis, and honestly, I get it. She doesn't deserve it. She has not earned it. She would not show this level of grace to anybody on the right wing, and she has proven time and time again to not cut any of these breaks to people on her own side. She's participated in the circular firing squad, so in a way, this is like a chickens come home to roost story. But I've been doing a lot of research into cults. I've been looking into it, and I've been seeing how good people can get sucked into it, and they basically advocate against themselves. They get churned on other people, all based on this pressure of belonging and all this stuff. So part of me feels bad because a lot of these progressives are in this cult. Now, I'm not forgiving of their actions. You're still responsible for your actions when you're in a cult. But a part of me is like, let's give her a break, give her some time to come back, and hopefully, like a lot of people have in the past, she can leave the cult and come out better for this situation. She could realize that these people in her audience are not people she can satisfy or win over. They're people that want her blood, they want to see her fall, and reject them and apologize for some of the negative energy she's put out into the world. Maybe use your connections like Hank Green or all these people that are connected with YouTube, not to ban people on the right that you disagree with on politics because they're evil, bad right wing and your tribe says that they're evil, bad right wing, but use those connections to lobby for more voices on the internet and more people to be able to speak, because all you've done in the name of banning your opposition is create space for a toxic mob that is now currently consuming you. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, you can show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. You can follow me on all my social medias. Will I even get all these words out without stumbling? Maybe, maybe not. Support me via the support links in the description box. This has been me talking about the thing that I said in the title of the video, whatever. Till next time.